Chapter 1. None of them looked like a movie star to me, Beth thought, as she looked out at her new class. It was the first day of the fall semester, and the room was filled with the same mix of students she saw every year. There were frat guys, goth kids, surfers, and preps. Several of the students had the classic California girl look, with long blonde hair and sun-kissed skin that sometimes made them hard to tell apart until she got to know them better. The boys seemed to be more varied, everything from the slim, awkward computer programmers who didn't look old enough to drive, to the hulking, bearded athletes who looked closer to middle age than college age. And then there were the ones who had the cherubic boy faces atop hairy man bodies. They reminded Beth of centaurs, the mythical half-man, half-horse. "Good morning," she said. "This is creative writing. Is everyone in the right place?" The students looked around at each other but remained silent. "Am I in the right place?" she added. A few of them nodded, but most just stared at her. "Well, that's a relief because I've totally gone to the wrong classroom on the first day of school before, and that's really embarrassing." Finally, a couple of students laughed. "I believe in easy first days, so we're just going to go over the syllabus and introduce ourselves. I'll start," she said, smiling warmly at them. "I'm Beth Grant. I grew up in a little town in Florida called New Smyrna Beach. Anyone heard of it?" The students stared at her blankly and she laughed. "No, I didn't think so." The students continued to stare at her, and she marveled at how this class of strangers in just a few short weeks would all become her kids. It was her favorite part about teaching. "Okay, now, I'd like to know about you. Tell me your name, where you're from, and your favorite thing to eat." The students looked confused again. "Imagine it's your birthday and you can have any meal you want. What is it? Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles? Grandma's Meatloaf? In-N-Out Burger? And be specific. Don't just tell me pizza. What kind of pizza? Thin crust? Deep dish? Lots of cheese? What's on it? What makes it so good? Remember, this is creative writing. Now," Beth paused and grinned, "who wants to start?" Most of the students looked down at their desks. Finally, a small, pale girl raised her hand. The pixie cut of her dark hair gave her an elvish quality that Beth found charming. Her name was Michelle, and she said her favorite meal was sushi and a gallon of Dr. Pepper. As the students shared about themselves, the awkward first day tension dissipated. When it was the last student's turn, a centaur named Caleb, who was describing the best fish tacos he'd ever had, the door opened and a tall, broad-shouldered guy slipped into the room. He took a seat in the back, and Beth knew without looking exactly who he was. When Caleb finished, she turned to the newcomer. "Hi, welcome. We're doing introductions, so please tell us your name, where you're from, and your birthday meal." He took off his sunglasses, and she noticed something vaguely familiar about him. Birthday meal?" The class stirred as they began to recognize him. On the spectrum of the male college student, this guy was firmly in the full-grown man category. It wasn't just that he was tall or muscular, though he was both. It was more than that. Something about him dwarfed everyone else in the room. Even the tattered baseball hat he wore couldn't hide it. Beth's heart stopped beating for a moment, but she barely noticed. And that must be what a movie star looks like. "Yes, the meal you'd eat if it was your birthday. Or just your favorite thing to eat. And be specific." She smiled at him encouragingly. Okay, I'm Todd. I'm from Miami, and I really like breakfast." "That's good," Beth said as a few of the students began to whisper. "I like breakfast too. But are you a waffles kind of guy? Or bacon and eggs? Biscuits and gravy? What exactly would you have?" I guess..." Just then a phone began to ring. "Shit," he said, digging in his pants pocket. Beth had expected him to take the phone out and silence it, so she was shocked when he looked at the screen, mumbled an apology, and left the class. She closed her gaping mouth when she realized the class was watching her for a reaction. "Well, I guess we'll never know. All right, let's take a look at the course syllabus." Somewhere between her attendance policy and assignment breakdown, Todd returned to his seat at the back of the class. "Now, you did a pretty good job with your meals today, but," she paused and looked around the room, "I think you can do better. So for next class, you'll need to expand on that and write out a detailed description of your favorite meal, how it tastes, what it smells like, the texture, and even the memory you associate it with. What makes that meal so special to you? Just a couple of paragraphs, no more than a page, okay?" A few of them nodded. "Are there any questions about this assignment or anything we've talked about today?" She was about to dismiss them when a hand shot up. It was the girl with the pixie cut. Beth nodded at her. "Michelle, right?" She nodded. Professor Grant, I was wondering, what is your birthday meal? Beth laughed, a big happy sound that bubbled up from deep in her stomach. Well, I guess it would have to be a vat of Pancho's guacamole and a margarita on the rocks. Michelle nodded in appreciation, and someone in the back of the class said, "Ooh, I love Panchos." Someone else called out, "Class field trip." Beth laughed again. "I'll think about it, but I'm pretty sure the administration would frown on that." There were a few dramatic groans of disappointment, and she couldn't help but smile at the energy of the class. If they were this open and responsive on the first day, it was going to be a good semester, despite celebrity interruptions. The day before, Beth had been sitting in her tiny office wondering where the summer had gone when there was a knock. The door opened before she could reply, and she knew this lack of courtesy could only mean one thing: Jean Walker. "Hi, Jean," she said, and bit back the same snicker she did every time she greeted the head of her department. The battered chair across from her creaked and sighed loudly as he sat down. As the last faculty member hired, she had the smallest office of anyone in the English department, maybe even the whole college. When colleagues would stop by and ask how she could work in a space barely bigger than a closet, she would sigh and shrug and put on her make the best of it face, but secretly she loved it. It was cozy, it had a window, and it was more of an office than she had ever had before. Even if it was outfitted with orphaned and discarded furniture, including the olive green chair where Green sat now. The chair was probably older than she was, and the wooden legs were uneven, causing the occupant to tilt awkwardly forward. She had meant to bring in a saw and even up the legs until she noticed that the uncomfortable chair seemed to keep visitors from lingering, except for Jean. "Hello, Beth. How was your summer?" He crossed his ankle over his knee, displaying a swath of hairless white flesh. "Good, but too short. You?" "Yep, same thing every year. I can't believe how quickly the time goes by," Jean said. "We took the RV back to Alabama to visit family. Little Jean got to spend time with her sisters, shopping and gossiping, and all of those things you ladies like to do." Jean's wife was also named Jean, and Beth found her to be equally unpleasant. "Seriously, dude?" Beth inwardly cringed, but bit back a snarky response. He continued, folding his hands on his soft belly. "But enough about the summer. I want to talk to you about something. I gave a student an override for your creative writing class." Even though it was rare to give a student an override for a writing class, it seemed odd that Jean would want to discuss it with her in person. Why didn't he just email me? "Okay, is that all?" Yes, but you should know. This student is different." "How so?" Beth felt the smallest flash of dread. "Well, he's an actor. A fairly popular one from what I gather. He's decided to go back to school in between films." "Really?" She hadn't expected that. "Who is it?"
Really? She hadn't expected that. Who is it? Todd Allman, the young man who played He-Man. Todd Allman? The name didn't even sound familiar. Despite living in Southern California for the last year, Beth hadn't caught the Hollywood bug. She couldn't even remember the last movie she'd seen, let alone who was in it. "I don't think I know who that is." "Well, no matter. You just need to make sure you provide him with any accommodations he may need." "Sure, I don't see why that would be a problem." She was trying to figure out what Jean wasn't saying, why the tone of the conversation seemed so strange. "Well, I did recommend that he take his first class from a more tenured professor. You know, someone with a little more experience to help guide him, but..." And there it is. Wait, this is his first class? He hasn't taken the prerequisites? Her creative writing class was not just some random elective. It was an upper-level course that required at least 2 prior English classes. "The dean has decided to make an exception. I really don't think it will be an issue, Beth. His people have assured us that he is quite serious about this class." His people? The thought popped out of her mouth before she could stop it, and she hoped it didn't sound as snarky out loud as it did in her head. Jean didn't seem to notice. "I told them because you are a more junior faculty member, I will personally oversee his progress in your class."
Oh. Again, Beth wasn't sure what to say. The thought of Jean looking over her shoulder all semester made her eye twitch. "So I expect you to make sure that he is happy here. I don't think I have to remind you how precarious funding is for our department." Funding? All the reading between the lines was giving her a headache. Jean sighed heavily. "I'd prefer to handle it myself, but since that's not an option, I need you to work with me on this. The dean is keenly aware of the exposure and potential income that this student can generate for our department. If you don't think you can get on board with that, his voice trailed off an unspoken threat. She forced a smile. Of course, Jean. I'm just trying to make sure I understand you. Listen, this is his first class, and we want to make sure he feels at home here. I'm only asking you to make sure that he has what he needs to be successful, which may mean going above and beyond as his instructor. Beth nodded. Okay, I'll be happy to work with him on his schedule or whatever. But what if he doesn't do the work? You don't want me to just give him a pass on the writing, do you? If his work in your class becomes an issue, I will take over the management of his grades. Are we clear? Oh, so you'll take over the grading. That way he passes the class even if he doesn't deserve to. She wanted to protest. Students who thought they were the exception to every rule were the only thing Beth hated about teaching. Now a celebrity was going to be in her class demanding special treatment all semester long, with Jean standing over her making sure he received it. It pained her to do so, but she just nodded. Yes, I understand. Thanks, Beth. I'll let you get back to your course prep, Jean said, as he heaved himself out of the chair with a puff of stale coffee breath. Before he could close her office door, she called out, Wait, Jean! Why did you put him in my class? His people requested it. Beth had just walked into her house and dropped her bag on the kitchen table when the phone rang. Hi, Jenna, she said. Jenna was her best friend and the main reason she had moved to Los Angeles the year before. Tell me about Todd Allman. How did it go? Ugh, Beth groaned. He showed up 20 minutes late, which I don't usually mind on the first day, except his phone went off in the middle of class, and then instead of turning it off, he left to take the call. Okay, but what was he like? Was he hot in person? He used to date that Victoria's Secret model, Missy DeVita, but they broke up. I have no idea who that is, and who cares what he looks like if he's an ass? He was probably just nervous. I read an interview with him in GQ, and he seemed cool. I bet he's actually really nice, Jenna said. Oh, well, if a magazine article says he's cool. Jenna ignored her. Hey, Asha is getting back this weekend, and I told her we would meet her out on Saturday. Asha was Jenna's college roommate. She had been on tour all summer with her husband Levi, the lead singer of the rock band Dipping Bear. Okay, want to grab dinner at Poncho's? No, we're not going to Poncho's. We go there all the time. We're going to their new place, the Meat Shed. Whose new place? What's a meat shed? It's the Meat Shed, and Levi and Asha are part owners. I don't know, Jen. You know how the first few weeks of school go. I'm pretty beat. Maybe I'll just sit this one out. You are not sitting this one out, Jenna was practically shouting. When was the last time you went out? When was the last time you even flirted with anyone? Actually, you'd be proud of me. I hit on some guy at the gas station last week. What? Who? At a gas station? Why didn't you tell me? I don't know, Beth said. I never heard from him, so I forgot. Well, did you give him your number? I gave him my business card. Jenna sighed, exasperated. Beth, no one calls. No wonder you haven't heard from him. He probably tried to text your office phone. Well, whatever. My email address was on there too. Email address? Ha! Jenna began to laugh. You have no game.